1st, the Supreme Court of Queensland is due to hear evidence in the Torres Straits this week. The controversial case, led by a group of Murray Islanders, is challenging the rights by restricting facial safety. The Minister, Bob Catter, had been Eddie Mabo.
And Eddie is pursuing two goals. One, he wants to get back there and own a very large proportion of Mer Island, and he wants to use that as a springboard for power. I don't think he should be trying to take land off the local people by an action run by European lawyers funded by public taxpayer from his home in Townsville.
Say good day to Murray Islander.
G'day, Murray.
I'm Rachel Perkins. I'm an Aranda filmmaker, and I've directed a film called Mabo, which is the great love story behind the historic Mabo decisions. When we were making the film Mabo, we knew we wanted to balance the political aspect of the story with the love story, which was the sort of foundation that enabled Koiki Mabo, Eddie Mabo, to go through and achieve what he did in this film. So we wanted to show the human aspect, and we knew that we would have to work closely with Benita, who is Eddie's wife. She's still alive, and for her, the 20th anniversary of the decision was a very important part of making this film and having the whole nation see what that family went through, see the sacrifices they made in order for the Mabo decision to change the nature of the country. One of the reasons we wanted to make this film is because people sort of have heard this Mabo word, but they actually don't know what it means. And the film explores the story of this man and his wife who dedicated their lives to changing the premise of the nation's beginning. What the High Court decision says is that Indigenous Australians were here before European colonisation, that they had a right to the land, that they still have a right to the land, and that Australia must accept that as part of its history and as part of its economy. The Mabo decision changed the fundamental premise of Australian identity. And I think we will only come to understand that in the future. And this film is about making Australians, bringing Australians to that greater understanding. Casting Mabo was about as difficult as having a cup of tea. There were Deb Mailman, we always knew we wanted her in it. She agreed. We knew we needed someone to play Eddie Mabo. We thought that Jimi Bani might be the person. We auditioned him, and that day we cast him. He was so brilliant, and it was the simplest thing I've ever been involved in. It just worked, and they're brilliant together, and they were beautiful to work with. They did an extraordinary job in presenting a partnership that went from the 1950s right through to the 1990s, and they tell this beautiful story of a couple who dedicated themselves to each other and a greater good in terms of the Mabo decision. So that is the heart of this film. Deb Mailman and Jimi Bani on screen together is absolutely, the soul of this film, and I think it sort of lives or dies on that, and, I think they nailed it.
I'm Jimi Bani. I'm playing Eddie Mabo in the movie Mabo. When I got offered the role, first of all, it was just a great honor. I was speechless. But I had to take cultural protocols, steps, in if I was the right person to play the role. Yeah, and spiritually, yes, I was the right one to play the role. I feel that I have to tell stories, I'm a storyteller. It was just the right time, as soon as when Mabo was about to cast, that I feel that I was, prepared, the most prepared, ready to play this, iconic man. I mean, you had to play him from when he was 19 all the way to when he passed on, with all these aging, changes. And I think, all of my work before that had prepared me for this particular role. I really enjoyed working with Rachel Perkins. It was my first time with her, and she is raw. She's got something to give, and just that connection that we had, working together, being, growing up in a political sort of world, and myself growing up in the cultural world up in the Torres Straits. There was just that was the first great connection, that we had. All the political stuff, she would know. She would come and say, give me great advice, great direction in that way, guidance in that way. And all the cultural stuff, then I would help you in that way. So it was a really great team. Working with Deborah Mailman, I've always heard about her, I've always looked up to her. I always wanted to meet her because I loved every work, everything she does on stage, with her in front of the camera. And I just knew that I'm gonna work with her one day. One day I'm gonna work with her, and it had to be this particular project, and she was perfect for it. And we had great chemistry together, and and she's from Queensland. I'm from Queensland as well, so there's the connection as well up there with me and Deb. Nera.
It's Bonita, actually.
That's a pretty name.
That's what it means in Spanish.
What?
Pretty in Spanish.
In Spanish.
But people call me Neta.
I'm Koiki. White fella's name Eddie, but it's Koiki for real.
Koiki. Sounds cheeky. Cheeky Koiki.
Koiki. That's I like that.
Infinite Stories, One Film Festival.